But we bring in John Helsley, who is a former beat writer for Oklahoma State from the Oklahoman. Now is a member of the faculty in the Oklahoma State, School of Strategic Media. I think that's what it's called. I get confused sometimes. But he is also the advisor for the Ocali newspaper. In fact, we had one of his students on yesterday, an editor from the Ocali, in Kayla Dunn, who was outstanding in uh, in talking to us about the issues going on following the death of George Floyd and the protests and rioting that's going on. And then John also works for Pokes Report, which is Sports Illustrated Maven's Oklahoma State site, and of course we work together on that. And I appreciate having John on the team. Good morning, John Helsley.
Good morning, Robert.
Hmm. It is an interesting morning. Oklahoma State's in the forefront again, and I know they're not the only team that has athletes reporting, but they are the only school so far that's been forthright and has, um, announced that they've had any positive tests. I'm sure you probably heard or saw some of that this morning. What are your thoughts?
Well, you will have to update me because I did not see it yet this morning.
Yeah, Kevin Clintworth tweeted that they've tested 150 staff, administration, support staff, and student athletes so far, and they had three asymptomatic positive tests, all by student athletes, and that the protocols that they had lined out have gone into effect, and so there you go.
So that's what I get for getting up and taking care of things around the house. I missed out on some news of the day.
Well, I mean, I again, and you know what? There were, I think, one of the reasons they addressed it, to be honest, because I was aware of this. Former Oklahoma and NFL offensive lineman Gabe Eichert, uh, I guess, was in contact with some freshmen at Oklahoma State um, that are were supposed to report, and have their report day has been backed up now. And Gabe wrote that because supposedly because they had five positive tests, and I know that rubbed some people the wrong way just because the number was incorrect, and so I think Oklahoma State was going to release it anyway. Obviously, they're not going to release names, but I think they are going to be forthright and transparent with what's going on. And to be honest, John, I know from talking to Coach Gundy, um, they anticipated as high as 8% of the test to come back positive. And after 150 tests with three positives, they're running at 2%. So that's less than they anticipated.
Yeah, and I mean, I think as we see, athletes return to colleges across the country, this is going to be pretty standard. Um, you're talking 150 athletes, I guess it was, and personnel. There's bound to be a few positive cases, and if they're asymptomatic, that's good, and they can get any sort of treatment or whatever's required up front before this thing really starts to, if they are going to have some symptoms that are, especially any that may get out, get serious. And so I think we're going to have to expect this. I think that I'm sure that OSU was prepared for it, and every other university will be prepared for that. And then, I'm sure quarantine is involved. I saw the email that went out a
Protocols.
couple of days ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so they've got a plan. They know how to go from here, and that's the beauty of the testing, right? Is to address these things up front and take care of it. And I would say the good news for OSU is the asymptomatic part.
Yeah, I think that, and also that it was lower than they anticipated. And this also, if people think about it, and I don't know how the media will react to this. I don't know how the national media will react, and I mean, I think uh, there's, you know, I don't know how the media reacts. I can't predict how they'll react to anything anymore. I think I've lost touch with my brethren in the media, but this is why Mike Gundy and I've had this conversation with him. The reason they wanted to bring guys in early is because they felt it would take that long in order to get the team clear of coronavirus and ready to work. Because right now you've got to keep those guys isolated, and anybody they've been in contact with while they've been here for the last couple of days, they're being monitored as well and will have to be retested because of the exposure. So, you've got.
And this is the yeah, and this is the process. And imagine the process across the country as well when just regular students come back to campus from all over the country
Mhm.
and in a lot of instances from all over the world. Right? There's a strong international population at Oklahoma State and other universities, and so they're going to have to be ready to deal with this on a lot of fronts. This is the next step in this thing, as far as I can tell, and as far as what the experts say. So here we go, and this is in a lot of ways this will be a great test for OSU, and I'm sure the rest of the university will be paying close attention as well.
And I think actually, I think Oklahoma State will end up being kind of an example that's used for other schools that report afterwards are going to, they're going to, and Oklahoma State, I'm sure, will share, their protocols and share the way things went. So schools that are, doing this later will have learned some lessons by the way Oklahoma State did this, going, at the forefront. Let's get into the football though, because I sense, I can sometimes, John, I can sense how that audience is feeling out there. And I get the sense right now that they're feeling like we have talked about social issues and we've talked about the coronavirus and we've talked about a lot of things this week and really haven't got into football. Um, have you got your Athlons yet since you wrote in it?
No, and now
And I
listen, part
feel
of that is they send a magazine and payment, so I'm sure they're sort of they're in no hurry to issue that check and get it out.
so if it were just the magazine, you probably have it by now. But since they got to send a check with it, they're not going to be in much of a hurry.
They
Uh,
only started sending check with magazine the last few years. So used to, yes, I would have an Athlon in my hand before they were on the newsstands. But now that they started bundling those, yeah, it's a little later.
well, now you write just do you write just the Oklahoma State or do you write Oklahoma State and Oklahoma?
I do both.
You do both.
Uh-huh.
Okay. The two that you wrote are picked one and two, and I know you don't make the picks, right?
Nope, no. They do ask every beat writer for like all conference suggestions, everywhere from first to fourth team, I think. Um, but all of that is done. And I wrote about this, I think, for the Oklahoman a few years ago when I was there. Um, they ask for some things, some suggestions. Hey, what's your insight? And they go into a room and they basically all their editors and everybody go into a room and they sort of hash this out, and I'd be fun to be in there, and everybody makes their arguments and they sort of just hash out every conference and make the picks and go from there. So that would be fun to sit in on sometime, I would think.
Well, they have Oklahoma winning it, um, and their projected record is 12-1, 8-1 in the Big 12. They have Oklahoma State picked second, 9-4 with a 6-3 Big 12 record, which means they anticipate Oklahoma State and Oklahoma, which this year with the Bedlam game being earlier on the schedule, this year the Big 12 would get the desired uh, spacing that they like between a rematch in the conference championship game for Bedlam since Bedlam's been moved up. But Texas number 3, Iowa State 4, Baylor 5, and then real quickly TCU, Kansas State, West Virginia, Texas Tech, and Kansas in that order in the bottom half. Any thoughts?
Well, right out of the gate, that means that they've got. I'm assuming they've got OSU losing to Oklahoma twice.
Yeah, that'd be two of the four losses, and
That would
that would
not be
be
much
the
fun for OSU fans.
no, no, that's not that wouldn't be much fun for Mike Gundy, who gets that's probably between not getting enough 4 and 5 stars in recruiting and the record against Oklahoma and Bedlam. Those are the two sore spots. So he's doing better recruiting. He's got 2 4 stars right in this class out of 7 recruits so far. So
It wasn't
the
long ago we
fans.
were sort of in a panic mode about how few recruits they had, but that's
Well,
changed a
there's
little bit.
still some of those. Yeah, there's still some people that are in that panic mode still.
Well, there's still plenty of players to go,
Yeah.
so here we go.
But here's and they have Oklahoma State playing USC in the Alamo Bowl, which I got to admit I think that would be a cool matchup. I've always been a big fan of the USC band, uh, with the Trojan fight song and Tusk, which they did with Fleetwood Mac. I'd kind of dig
Hmm.
me some Trojan band. All Big 12, which you sent out some suggestions. Um, this is what's amazing to me. They have 5 Cowboys on the first team All Big 12. Chuba Hubbard, Tylan Wallace, Tevin Jenkins, all on offense. Kobe Harvell Peel. By the way, they have Hubbard as a first team All American, Tylan as a second team All American, and Harvell Peel as a third team All American with their All American teams. And the fifth, I thought this was interesting. The fifth first team All Big 12 pick for Oklahoma State is a specialist, Dylan Stoner at punt returner.
Interesting.
It is.
Okay. Well, they're well represented. So I would say the magazine thinks highly of OSU just based on the things you've told me. And no surprise to us around here because, we think this is a chance to be a really special season. And, we need to kick it off and we need to start playing games and all that sort of stuff on time. But yeah, I think, everybody I talk to, Robert, that's the question that, they know my former life and my current life too, but they want to know, will there be a football season? I'm sure you run into that all the time as well, wherever you see people. And it's on
Well,
everybody's mind. It's like you said, they need something positive to be able to look forward to anticipate, and to plug sort of into their lives. And football sitting right out there on the horizon is one of those things that could give people some feel good moments.
well, and this is going to take me back to what we talked about at the beginning of the show and with the beginning of you being on. For us to have a football season this year, it's going to take what Oklahoma State's doing right now. That's what it's going to take. You have to get, and this is why Bob Bowlesby scared to death that you could be in the middle of the season and say 3 Big 12 teams in 1 week end up with players testing positive, and now you've got to kind of rip up the schedule and try and match make with teams to for games on a Saturday. I mean, there are a lot of scary situations here, and I know everybody wants to play football, and that starts with the players and the coaches want to play football. But in order to
Yeah,
do that, you have got to closely monitor, and you've got to get these because football is not a social distancing sport. It's not as bad as wrestling, but there's a lot of sweat, blood, and spit that gets traded out there on a football field. And so you've got to come in with players who don't have coronavirus. And the only way to do this right now is to bring players in, test them, quarantine, isolate, abide by all those rules that have kind of done states like Oklahoma well in getting ahead of the curve, social distance, all those. And then when you come to Saturday, you got to have two teams that don't have anybody with coronavirus playing against each other. That's I mean, that may sound crazy, but that's how you're going to get this done if you get it done.
and it's going to be tricky because we know what age group we're talking about here. And listen, this is going to be tricky for the NFL in these open dialogues you're seeing between the players and owners of Major League Baseball. You see a lot of references to this. It's going to take a lot of discipline for kids who are 18 to 22 years old or older to, give up a part of their life that's just part of being a college kid, right? Don't go to the strip, don't go to parties, all this sort of thing. Yeah, you're gonna almost have to self quarantine yourself to a degree, right? I mean, to a degree that you're not putting yourself in places and situations where you could make it easier to contract this virus. So it's going to be tricky. It's tricky enough for all of us. But when school starts and we have students in house and the strip opens up and the Greek houses open up and things start happening again, you know that the cases are going to rise. And you're going to have to ask kids and try to inform them the best that you can to be smart a little while longer here until this thing gets a vaccine or whatever.
Well, and the leadership on your team is going to be extremely important because it'll be peer pressure that gets kids to understand. Look, I need to stay and study in my apartment, stay around my teammates, not go and look for that girl that I think's hot in algebra class or biology class because my teammates are depending on me to be healthy and COVID-19 free so we can play Kansas State this Saturday. I mean that's basically what you're going to that's the carrot you throw in front of these kids is look, as long as we stay together as a team, as long as we keep the virus out of our team and our community, we can go play football. When we don't and we have it, we're going to be on the sideline. And that's just the way I think this is going to work. So it's going to be real. It'll be real interesting. Hey, I want to get back to football real quick because I assume you did most of these deals. Key Cowboys: Chuba Hubbard, Tylen Wallace. Okay, I mean those are given. The third is Jarek Bernard.
I tried
How'd you
not to
come
go
up with?
totally chalk on these. Some of these become so
Yeah,
obvious. It's like, yeah, no duh. So I tried to go at least the best I could to, mix
I
somebody
think it's a
in. It's
good
a key.
pick.
Yeah, I do too. I do too. It's a position that's, if there's a position on defense with all the guys they have back, it's corner a little. Um,
Yeah.
there's a lot of fans out there that are like, okay, Rodarius has played a lot of games, but he's given up some plays, and they're a little worried about Rodarius. And now you've got AJ gone at the other spot, and so you've got a guy moving over from safety to fill that slot. And I know the Cowboys feel good about it, but I think he's a key player on the defense because what we do know about the Big 12 is a lot of schools winging around a lot.
Well, and your rising star fits in the same position group, Thomas Harper, and I think he's a guy that came in last year as a freshman. I remember when OSU signed him, or when he committed to OSU, he had no stars. He wasn't rated. But when you turned on the video and watched his video, I mean, and he comes from the same school there in Knoxville, Tennessee, Carnes, that his brother Devin Harper came from, and we know how good Devin was. Came in and he's been a really good player, even though he's had a hard time getting in the starting lineup. Um, he's made a lot of plays. Thomas Harper comes in last year, and I mean in fall camp, the defensive staff's like, ooh, this guy's pretty good. So
Yeah, and hey, as we talked about that's an area not obvious depth there, and so there's an opportunity for a young and somewhat inexperienced guy to jump in and make a name for himself.
and again, John Helsley with us. He wrote the preview for Oklahoma State as well as Oklahoma in the Athlon's preseason football magazine that's out. If I told you these two things, and I mean you mention it, in fact, in your final analysis, You said the Cowboys see this as a high stakes season. They've got the talent, the kind of schedule that aligns with their lofty goals. They can't withstand the crippling injuries that limited the team a year ago. And along with staying healthy, Spencer Sanders, the quarterback, must elevate his game. Absolutely agree with that. But if I gave you these two questions and gave you good answers, let's say Tom Hutton is going to be much better punting the football than he was in his first year. And then the other one that I would throw out there is that Josh Sills, coming in from West Virginia, is going to be every bit as good as you thought he would be in the offensive line. If I told you those two things were going to happen, how much further or how much better do you feel about Oklahoma State's chances to even win the Big 12?
Yeah, I mean, Tom Hutton's got to be better, right? I mean,
Yeah, he does.
he's it's OSU doesn't punt a lot, but there's always key points in big games, especially where you need a big kick, and they didn't get that a lot last year, not at the critical moments anyway. And so he needs to be better because I'm not sure what the plan B is there. And then Josh Shields, I liked the offensive line even before he showed up. But yeah, that's if he's as good as you and others I know inside the program believe, then that it really elevates that O line. You know, it really does, and that of course helps Spencer Sanders, who's the other key guy here that we're talking about. So yeah, I think that's a definite bonus. I mean, I like this team as it is. Um, but those would be nice. Those would be nice givens to be able to bank on, especially right now.
Well, John Helsley, everybody, and I hope you get your check. You earned it. You earned it. Looks good.
I anticipate it. Let me just say that.
Hope you get your check and get a copy of the magazine so you can look at your work. So,
Hey, I was glad to hear you say you had Kayla on the show yesterday, and I know I didn't hear it, but I have no doubt that she was awesome because that's who she is.
unbelievable. Yeah,
Yeah, she's sharp.
yeah, and she's got a chance. I tell you what, have you noticed? I noticed one word, and I'm going to guess since she used it two or three times in the interview that she probably uses it quite a bit, and it's a good broadcast word because it's one you learn with regards to shooting video or film. But she likes the word juxtaposition.
Okay.
Have you noticed that?
I hadn't heard her
No.
use that a lot, but
Okay.
knowing what the topic was, I understand it.
Yeah.
But
She
Kayla's
was at
multi-talented young lady with skills in a lot of different, areas, and so
Yep.
she's going to really do well for herself when she finishes up.
She was at the Black Lives Matter protest on Sunday afternoon. She was not there Sunday night. She was there Sunday afternoon with some friends that went down to participate and march to the Capitol. Um, she is, like you said, she's very well spoken. Uh, you can tell she's very enlightened. That so, yeah, I enjoyed having her on, and Casey and his wife. Of course, they've got a younger daughter too that's a student at Oklahoma State now as well. But they have done a terrific job as parents, and their young lady has um, no limits. I mean, she can do anything she wants.
That's exactly right.
So
Can't wait to see it.
so yeah, it speaks well for her teachers too. So thought I'd
It
throw
was
in a
fun.
compliment for you there.
Well, hey, it's just fun being around her and her energy and her passion and her intelligence too. I mean, she's just really sharp. She's really tuned into so many things. You know, she did a great internship last summer in Arizona where she worked on the border um, with with youth, and oh man, it's she's fun to watch because she's a go getter, and
Yeah.
don't be surprised if we don't see her on TV at some point down the road.
Well, hey John, I appreciate it.
Thank you, Robert.
All right, John Helsley. We